Welcome to Reading the Gospels together, and this morning we're reading John chapter 2. And after the challenges of John's introductory chapter, we find ourselves on firmer footing. Actually, where we find ourselves is at a wedding. Jesus' ministry is just beginning. In fact, he's just called the first few of his disciples, beginning with some followers of John the Baptist. So he now has with him Andrew and Peter, Philip and Nathanael, and a fifth unnamed follower of John the Baptist, perhaps even the John of our gospel. We can't be sure. Now, having returned from John's baptism area, which was close to Jericho, Jesus has now gone north and returned to Galilee just in time for a wedding. We aren't told whose wedding it is, only that Jesus' mother was there, and the invitation has been extended to Jesus and his disciples as well. Maybe it's the wedding of a family member, one of Jesus' sisters perhaps. In any case, a problem soon arises. They've run out of wine. That might seem like an odd problem, particularly if you're a teetotaler, but in Jesus' context, it's significant. Wine was the very symbol of celebration and joy. It was the key symbol of God's blessing. Wine signified stability and piety, stability and plenty, I beg your pardon. You can only grow grapes when you're in an agriculturally rich area for a significant period of time, and in a time of comparative peace and prosperity. Wine at a wedding was a symbol of the blessing of the marriage and of the years to come. To run out of wine was not only to put a damper on the party, it was also a cause of shame for the family and a bad omen for the future of the couple. Now, to this day, weddings in the Middle East are community affairs, often with many hundreds of guests made up not only of extended families, but all the local neighbors and friends. The celebrations could last well more than a day. An Arab Christian friend of mine in Bethlehem, Isa Musa Abba Dawood, told me of the wedding of one of his daughters where he had to provide food for over 2,000 people. And he was not a wealthy man, certainly not after that wedding. So, they've run out of wine, and Jesus' mother tells him about the problem. Another clue that this is a family affair. Jesus' response to Mary is surprising. "Woman," he says, "why do you involve me? My time has not yet come." Now, what does this curious response tell us? It tells us that Mary is aware that Jesus is somehow capable of solving the problem, aware of his messianic role and power. A sign of the messianic age is an abundance of wine. And secondly, that Jesus did not feel as though he was ready to be revealed as a worker of miracles. But Mary forces his hand. You just don't say no to a Jewish mother. Now, this incidentally is much of the basis as to why our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters appeal to Mary in prayer rather than to Jesus. In this instance, Jesus was reluctant, but Mary's intervention led to his action. Now, within Protestantism, of course, we pray only to Jesus, but in the context of the Cana miracle, you can see how this led others into taking the praying to Jesus through Mary path. In any case, Mary in our story ignores Jesus' protestations and simply instructs the servants to do what Jesus tells them to do. Nearby are 6 stone water jars, each holding between 20 and 30 gallons. Being made of stone, they are considered by the Jews as ceremonially uncontaminated. They were doubtless there to provide water for the ritual hand washing, which any Jew would do prior to eating any meal, and particularly at a wedding banquet. Instructing the jars to all be filled with water, Jesus tells them to bring a sample to the master of the banquet, who's sort of the cross between the caterer, the maitre d', and the MC, and that man proclaims it to be the finest of wines. Now, note that there's nothing said about what Jesus actually does to perform this miracle. There's no prayer or action recorded. The jars are filled with water, and somehow now they're wine. Jesus is not a magician who would go through a long song and dance before producing a result. Instead, he simply instructs and it's done. 180 gallons of water are now wine. That's the significant work of a significant godly figure. Now, 180 gallons of wine is a pretty good wedding gift. It tells you the size of the crowd, that they would need this much wine, much bigger than the 40 people at my own wedding so long ago. But it tells us so much more. It's a vast quantity of wine, a sign of the Messianic age, as we've said. It's a better quality of wine than previous, a sign of the superiority of the new covenant under Jesus. It's a sign that Jesus has the power of the elements, which is a sign of his divinity. In John's language, what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. In the introduction, we talked about the 7 signs in John which gradually reveal Jesus as the Messiah and Son of God. This intimate miracle in little Cana is the first of these signs. Now, you'd think that Cana would be a pretty significant place, but it was a small Galilean town to begin with, and archaeologists are unsure to this day exactly which of the local Cana towns near to Nazareth is the right one. The one to which tourists are directed these days has a very popular wedding chapel, and every shop on the street sells little bottles of genuine Cana wedding wine. I can assure you that while there are wonderful wineries making superb wine in Israel, particularly on the Golan, the stuff they sell to tourists in Cana is nasty, quite the opposite of the wine in our story. So if you go there to Cana and you buy a bottle, I advise you to keep it corked and regard it as a souvenir. And while I did perform a marriage ceremony for a lovely young couple in Israel, we did so on a peaceful spot on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And no, there wasn't 180 gallons of wine either. Now, next time we'll jump ahead chronologically 3 years while staying in chapter 2 for the story of Jesus clearing the temple. Remember, John orders things differently than the other Gospels do, and we'll find out why when we get together next time. We'll see you then, chapter 2 in the Gospel of John.